On this episode of Blending Bourbon, be sure to join Dixon Dedman and myself, David Mark Young, live and in person from Kentucky as we discuss Kentucky bourbon.
Blending Bourbon is the podcast that takes you beyond the barrel and behind the scenes of the whiskey industry with master blenders Dixon Dedman and David Mark Young.
Welcome back to another episode of Blending Bourbon, the podcast brought to you by Golden Sheaf, Dixon Dedman, 2XO Whiskey, and for the first time joined in person by the man who can rock a V-neck better than anyone else on the planet, David Mark Young, owner, master blender of Golden Sheaf Whiskey. It's really special to have you here.
Thank you,
really,
Dixon Dedman.
It's really nice to have you here.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you. You're a warm, welcoming host. You poured me some bourbon. I appreciate that.
That's funny. Do you think it's bourbon?
It's rye. It's rye.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. Gosh. Busted. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that warm welcome. It's nice to be here in Kentucky, in Dixon Dedman land, where everybody's a fan of 2XO. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's funny, and I think we should mention, it's fair to mention that, there's a whole lot of editing that has to take place to make us look as professional and as well put together as we are, which means that we record and then there's several weeks between the recording and, it going live. So, we're actually talking soon after the new year. You made a pilgrimage to Kentucky to do some work-related things and to come try to put one of these together in person. You, like an absolute maniac, decided to drive yourself across the country, which is always entertaining. But you kind of got a little week-long Kentucky visit going here, to kick off the new year. And I mean, you want to, what's been the highlight of your, trip so far?
Oh man, it's all been highlights. It's been highlight after highlight. Yeah. What better way to kick off the year than to come to the Mecca, the, Disney World of bourbon, my favorite place on the planet. I parked myself in Bardstown. Been spending a lot of time there. After all, this is, not just business, not just work, but want to have a little bit of fun. So, I was coming down here, had a flight scheduled and decided that it would just be easier to drive, hauling various marketing materials and podcast equipment and all the great things, possibly a little bit of bourbon, and then of course I have to haul it all back, so it's just easier. It was easier, and and then that way I can just drive to all the places at my leisure, the convenience of my own vehicle, and that's then ended up here with you right here in what do they call this town?
Danville. We're in Danville.
Danville. Okay. I thought it was Dixonville, but
that's what it says, Dixonville on the sign, but everybody calls it Danville.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot going on. This is going to be a big year for Golden Sheaf. Last year was a success. It was a big year for us. It was our first year. So, we got some product out there. We got a lot of great feedback. We won some accolades. So it's about growth, scaling, discovering, and what better way than to be amongst those that do it the best, making bourbon selling bourbon, consuming bourbon, all of the things. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's been a very prosperous, very, very productive week, meeting with a lot of folks. I'm not gonna name drop, but a lot of folks, bourbon related people. How's that? And perhaps socializing the Golden Sheaf good name and kind of our go to market strategy and exploring various states that we'll be rolling out to strategically this year. So yeah, one of the things I love about this industry, and it's validating to me, for me, because I left a different career, different occupation, is that everybody is it's getting used to this setup here, looking over at Dixon and look here on the screen. Everybody is friendly and welcoming, and I don't get that. Maybe you can help me understand why it's such a friendly industry, because there are a lot of industries that are cutthroat and competitive, and folks, especially here in Kentucky, are what's the expression? Open kimono, 100%.
Oh yeah, you said that. That weirded me out the other day.
Yeah, you just completely opened up your kimono and shared all the goods, and I apologize too. I've got a little bit of laryngitis here. This is not the COVID.
Maybe you should keep your kimono closed a little more often than you would.
Stay out of others' open kimonos. But yeah, seriously, that's such a great thing for me, especially. It's something I'm very grateful for, is that folks like yourself and other people in the industry are willing to share and talk and help and collaborate. And it's been like I said, validating for me that I'm in the right place, because I have the same mindset. I want to help, I want to share, I want to give back. But why is that, do you think?
It's an interesting question, and it's something that I remember used to pinch myself, like, oh wow, like and I'm not sure that I really have, but oh, this person will acknowledge me, this person will talk to me, that we can, they're they know what I'm doing, they're excited about what we're doing. It's funny, when you at the sales level, there's a certain level where the rep for for this distributor or this brand like goes in the store, and they're like chewing up the staff. They're like, why is this bottle placed in? Why do they have this shelf placement? And, and like fighting over this, and then the next guy comes in and he moves it back around. Like there is that at a sales level, at a marketing sales level, at an event level. Why did they get this table and we got
Right.
this table? Why do
Right.
And that's any industry, right? That's like why brands pay gajillion dollars to be in the, like, when you walk into Costco, right there on the wall when you walk, but I still think of this industry when you're talking about the producers, when you're talking about the blenders, the distillers, there's such a camaraderie and a it's a club, and it's a very welcoming club until you do something that pisses other people off, and
Right.
then that changes things. But for the most part, it's kind of, it's also, I think there's a bit of that like kindred spirit thing. It's
Yeah.
like when you do it and what goes on and what has to happen, and the way, the challenges and the behind the scenes headaches and, all that stuff. Like, it's almost kind of like, I know we're not exactly in the same boat because we're doing our own things, but we deal with the same things. So there's that like underlying appreciation for what you do and the challenges you face and how you accomplish them. And that, the other thing about this industry that I find to be, I don't know. I just cherish it is that everybody, they want the best for everybody else. They want you to succeed. They want to be helpful. We're in a period in this industry where, grow like the growth and the way it's going and it's exciting and I don't have to worry about somebody cutting into my piece of the pie, because if I had more stuff, it would be out there, and there's so much excitement about this space and what's happening, the innovation and those types of things. And I think it's as I don't know. It's everybody kind of is in a different, not the same boat, but everybody's pulling on the same end of the rope. Like we all want, American whiskey to grow and thrive.
Yeah.
That whole idea, when people used to say like, how do you make a gas station better is one to open up across the street. And then become, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's just, so it's fun. I mean, it's fun to kind of connect and share war stories and I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's cool.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of it, is that it is fun. It's been 100% fun for me. Even the I guess the less interesting aspects of it. I think at the end of the day, everybody's enjoying their own product and perhaps even sharing and enjoying it. Maybe it's just it's a happier industry. I mean, it is the spirit industry, and maybe that's it. I mean, that's something a lot of people do when, to celebrate or to share together. So I bet that's got a lot to do with it. There's just a lot of industries out there that are competitive, and that, everything's proprietary, everything's close to the chest. And, there are things, but pretty much the majority is out there in the open to share.
Well, it's funny. It's like I made I can't remember where I was. So I've made a joke. Somebody was like, you're in the middle of this 13, 14 week, sales, travels, airports, hotels, all of that stuff. And I said, how do you do it? And quite frankly, and this is, I mean, I don't mean this, the way it's going to sound, but making and selling bourbon is not terrible. I don't think, and this is the point I was making, is like, if I was born into this is where it went. I was saying that if I were born into a company that sold brake pads, I don't know that I would be as excited about hitting the road and selling brake pads. And for the rest of that trip, the people that I were with continued to make Tommy Boy references, and they just kept like, it was like I put on a jacket and I would stand up and somebody would be like, fat guy and a little, and like, but it's generally speaking, when you've got some decent whiskey, people are happy when you walk through their door, and that's fun. And I think, something that I don't know that that we kind of sidebarred from your initial question, but it's great. I know the people you've met with, and I won't mention them unless you choose to mention them. But for example, I was at an event in Dallas not long ago, and spent hours with one of my favorite people on the planet, who we're going to get on this, Dan Calloway at BBC, and. It's like the BBC team, whether it's, whether it's Mr. Rutledge texted me on both Christmas and New Year's. It's just like there's just something cool about this. Everybody wants everybody to do really well,
Right,
and
right.
and that it's a welcoming industry. Once you've kind of proven that you're in it for the right reasons with the right, mentality, and the things that you believe in are what the industry itself kind of believes in, which is growth,
Right.
and doing right by people, and being part of a community. It's a community.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty tight community. So in your experience, you've been doing this quite a while. Have you, surely you've come across those that aren't like everyone else, that aren't interested in sharing, that perhaps are a little, or maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I will say that from when I started into this, it took a while to prove that I knew what I was doing, or that I was, that I was capable, competent, that it wasn't just like I was really committed to what I was doing. But there's also a significant shift that's occurred in the industry. And I think we've talked about this a little bit. When we launched Kentucky Owl in 2014, the initial feedback from the whiskey community, which was smaller then, but no less knowledgeable, I don't think, was, NDP was such a bad word.
Right.
NDP was, hey, you don't make your own stuff, and then, you don't age state it, and then, blah. And what and even then, when I was invited, and I was invited to sit on panels most of the time because like 17 people before me had passed on the opportunity, so I was like, way down the list. But there it was very like innovation in bourbon and American whiskey, kind of doing things that weren't very, very, very traditional,
Right.
were taboo, were and like the old guard, and not in a bad way, but we're just, and I respect and appreciate their desire to, ensure that the guardrails that make bourbon are in place, and that they're followed, respected, or whatever. But this industry in the 12 whatever 15, 14, 15, whatever that I've been doing it, I mean, it's changed.
I'm sure it has.
Things have opened up. People are a lot more receptive to innovation, to let's push a little bit. So a lot of the things I saw early on were somebody shows up with something that's to the old guard is controversial, and it was, it was contentious. And now it's a lot less so. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. Do you, whatever.
Yeah. When you talk about traditional industry, I get it. And when I think of traditional, and I'm thinking of Bardstown in particular, the city, Bardstown, Kentucky, I think of Willett Distillery. You drive up, really great experience. Everything from the tour to the restaurant and the gift shop, but to me that's traditional, and that's, you pull up on the gravel road, and you get a feel for kind of historical times, I suppose. But then the opposite of that is Bardstown Bourbon Company, and Bardstown Bourbon Company's innovative. And I feel like and this is, coming from, newer, certainly, than you've experienced, but, do you recall when Bardstown began their journey to where they're at today? I mean, they've really come a long way. And when I'm talking non-traditional, traditional space, at Bardstown is more technology savvy. They're more innovative, forward thinking, less human touch points on the product, as it comes in, from the time they bring the barrels in till the time they fill them. And, but was there any pushback on that within the industry, or any, naysaying as far as, hey, wait, we've been doing this way since great granddaddy did it in the backyard, and you guys are trying to disrupt the way that we make bourbon?
It's like, this is funny that, like, that's the comparison you make. Because Willett and the Willett distillery, Thompson Willett built that distillery, and it closed. And the Colesbeans resurrected that thing, built the new distillery, bought they were brilliant. Evan Colesbean, loaded these rickhouses with phenomenal liquid from, all over the place. Like, Willett, that would not be one that I would say, is like this historical. I mean, yes, there's history of that brand. Willett freaking made NDPs cool.
Okay.
They were,
Yeah.
I mean, the Willett family estate program. I would say that Drew and Evan are as responsible for, or right there at the top of the conversation for, changing the landscape of American whiskey with what they did, and the forward thinking, of the Willett family estate program, of these single barrels, barrel proof, and like NDP to another level. Because what do you know? You know the barrel number, which you don't know. You don't know the mash bill. The age, but they changed the landscape of American whiskey, I would say. I mean, what they did with that program. So I don't necessarily, yes, the feel when you go there, visit it and all that stuff. I get the historical feel to it.
Yeah.
But in terms of, what they did, what they're doing, they're making mash bills that are outside the norm of traditional Kentucky mash bills. I mean, higher. They got a mash bill that's higher malt in it than rye in a bourbon mash bill. Innovative. I think they're, yes, the feel, but then with Bardstown, that's a whole nother level. Like, and I would say that, I don't know this, somebody can look this up, but Cave Zemanian at Rabbit Hole, had this notion, BBC. I mean, I stood on top of BBC, on top of that distillery. There was, it was just metal piers. It kind of had a roof on it. There were no walls, no nothing. I stood up there with David Mandel, and I was like, I'm not sure if he's bringing me up here to push me off or, but we're looking out, and you could see where they had done the groundwork for the future rickhouses, but there was nothing but the shell of the distillery. We're standing on the roof looking out and talking about the vision, talking about Pete's vision, all that stuff. Yeah. You talk about, the caves at Rabbit Hole. You talk about, what they did there at BBC, and this, this entirely new concept of, we're going to be, like, we'll be your kitchen. Like, you come in, you don't have to spend the money to build the distillery to make the sausage. You
Right.
come in here, you
Yeah.
pay us, you tell us exactly what you want in your sausage, we'll make it for you.
Yeah,
Like
that's critical.
another very innovative, this idea of custom kitchen is a very innovative space, and a major change that has happened in the last 10 years
Right.
in this
Right.
industry.
Yeah.
Completely different from, you talk about the historic stuff. You go to, now of course they've had to industrialize and
Yeah.
grow,
Oh, yeah.
but you go to the Buffalo Traces, the Wild Turkeys, the Four Roses, the Maker's Marks, and I mean, that operation, yes, has it been adapted? Has it evolved? Absolutely, but those are the ones that are saying, "Hey, we've been doing this for a gajillion years, and
Yeah.
we ain't changing."
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and that's just it, and that's why I asked the question, because you've been doing this a hell of a lot longer than I have, certainly. And I'm not even, I've been to Jim Beam for, I've never been to Buffalo Trace. I've never been to, there's a few, but, I guess aesthetically, that's what I saw. I've been to Willett a number of times. Amazing place, amazing experience, amazing people, amazing whiskey. But to me, they're polar opposites. I saw, from a distance, Bardstown evolve, and I, just remember reading and hearing about what they were doing. They were pursuing their grain to glass, which is absolutely impressive. I was just there yesterday. I was there a couple months ago, and I get out here every couple months, and but oh gosh, the expansions, rick houses go up every couple months, and then they fill them, and they're putting a new extension on the main distillery, putting a new still in. I heard they just bought some farmland. They're putting a lake in, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And ironically, and I want to mention this, they're launching their Origin series this week. And that's a major milestone for them to have their product, exclusively their product in the bottle for the first time versus their product melded in with other whiskeys. So, and I'm honored to say I'll be there to experience that launch and taste some of that product and take some of that product home with me as well. That's why I drove my car out here. It's just easier to drive home a couple cases of whiskey.
I'm going to say something that may be controversial.
Okay.
And so I'm going to whisper it. I'm just going to whisper it. Like I think that if Bardstown, Pete, and team had done that venture, had created that concept 10 years earlier, they'd have probably met with a hell of a lot more resistance than they did.
Yeah.
They were smart, they were visionary, and one of the things they did, they got running, and they helped a lot of people who needed to expand, big names that needed to expand, bridge the gap between their starting their expansion and completion of their expansion. They helped a lot of big brands put away product that's going to help their growth.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the timing was right. They were brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. But had it been 10 years earlier, I think a lot of the people would have been like, you can't do that. You can't.
Right.
This isn't bourbon. You can't build a big new place with a fancy kitchen and glass and this and that and the other. And it was just the timing was fantastic for them. And what they've created is, to me, I mean, when people say, "Hey, what do I need to visit?" I don't think there's a more scenic trip than the trip to Maker's Mark or the trip to Woodford Reserve.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful, historic feel, but in the same conversation, I say you've got to go to BBC. You've got to see what kind of, I think, a little bit of the future of and they've, there was legislation that passed. It allowed them. That whole restaurant was supposed to be just an event space.
Right.
So that
right.
legislation changed. Cocktail bar, restaurant, and guess what? Everybody else is doing after that.
Yep.
Following suit. Restaurants, bars. I mean, it's just amazing what they've been able to accomplish. You definitely should not leave this time or next time without visiting Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, I think
that's a you talk about perspective. If your perspective right now is like historic, not that it's not historic, but if where you're if when you think historic nostalgia, old bourbon is Willet, go check out Maker's Mark. Go check out Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
Different level.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say different level. Just pretty cool.
Different experience, yeah. More of the traditional. Yeah, absolutely. I plan to. I plan to visit all of them. And yeah, it's just haven't made it out there. We just haven't made it out there yet. But I mean, to me, it's interesting to go to. I mean, Jim Beam just opened up a new distillery last year, and
they open them up. As soon as they open it up, it's not big enough, and they start construction to add on to it.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have. And it seems like everybody's doing that now. Every month there's a new announcement. Somebody's investing $500 million or $1 billion to double expansion, double output. What does that tell you? A lot of people drinking bourbon out there.
Now, I want to ask you this because I really do want your opinion on this this Russell's Reserve rye whiskey. Like, what do you think about this?
I love it. It's very pleasant to drink for sure. It stands out from. I'm not a solid rye guy.
I'm just kidding, dude. This is your rye.
I was just saying, it reminds me of Golden Sheaf rye. Fuck. But I'm trying to be humble here. I think I made a great rye. When you said that, I was a little taken back. That is definitely familiar.
I absolutely love this stuff. I could smell this glass.
Oh man, wow.
All day long.
Gosh, that's why I came to Kentucky, came to Dixonville, is to hear you say nice things to my face versus 6 states apart.
I had to invite you here so you'd actually bring some, but that's not true.
I didn't bring some. Well, thank you. I appreciate it as I drink it in my 2XO glass with honor. I knew it was familiar, and it made me feel at home. So
I was gonna scream cut if you started to say, yeah, I don't really
rattle off. That's garbage water right there. I don't know who would drink that. It's very familiar. I have been sampling it across Kentucky and the other states as I've been touring around. Matter of fact, it's kind of turned into a bit of a road show. I'm arranging for sample drop-offs to various influencers to get it in the hands of folks to talk about it and share it. And so thanks for.
So I think this conversation probably, I mean, we need to expand and expound on this. This is another, like, when you talk about and read the list, read the list. Where are these? Where can you find these podcasts? Like, it's everywhere, right? Apple, it's all that.
Sure.
Stuff.
Yeah. So our producers are very talented producers at Two Brothers Creative. They do a great job of of disseminating this, spreading the wealth. So, we're on pretty much all of the podcast platforms. I think there's roughly a dozen or 13, but Spotify, Apple, Stitcher is one I wasn't familiar with. YouTube is the only video platform, but there's 13 total. From what I understand, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts.
We have the at the blending bourbon on Instagram, which I think is the best place. But so following this conversation, what I would love to hear from, I think we're up to 8 people that listen to this, but give me, let's talk about your favorite distillery experiences. Where you get the best cocktail? Where is the, what's the best tour? What things do you like about? What things do you not like about? Like, let's talk. As we go forward, let's do an episode on some of this feedback of like, what's your ideal Kentucky bourbon trail experience? What other distilleries outside of Kentucky do you love? Do you think people should see? Let's talk about that kind of thing. Like where do you go and you think, this is all smoke and mirrors, and where do you go to say, hey, this is, I'm really getting the down low on how this happens. That would be a fun thing to get feedback and share that feedback, read comments, talk about them, respond to them. That could be a lot of fun.
Like, share, subscribe, comment. Yeah, that's the thing, is feedback. We want feedback. We're getting feedback, and people asking about Kentucky, asking those questions, and also sharing. And that's just it. Is bourbon? I don't know if I dare say this. I am in Kentucky, but bourbon's not only made in Kentucky.
Right.
It doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. I think that's the thing. Gosh, I being based in Nebraska, being based in Omaha, Golden Sheaf has established itself. We've reestablished itself in our backyard. I think we're doing a great job, and we really appreciate all of our local support. Lots of support. It's overwhelming, pleasantly overwhelming. But when I come down here to Kentucky and I'm asked where I'm from, and I mention Nebraska, I kind of get that stink eye. Wait a minute, you actually make bourbon in Nebraska? Which is kind of surprising to me, because I think of bourbon as an American spirit. I mean, I'm very well versed in Kentucky bourbon, and that the majority of whiskey and bourbon is made in Kentucky. And one of the things we're doing, I'm going to digress for just a second here, is seeking out good whiskeys, good bourbons around the country. Whether it's in Minnesota or Delaware or Louisiana, Washington State, there's some amazing bourbon out there. And that's one of our niches is to incorporate those and stand out from kind of the norm, if you will.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. That's the innovation. That's what's happening in this space. That's where this is going. It's not, I mean, you're going to have, where wine is not all California.
Right. Right.
Wine is not all France. Right. Did it lead the charge? Did California move the needle for American wines? Absolutely. Are some of the best wines, from California? Absolutely. Do they make great wines in other parts of the country? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And, I mean, I think bourbon is that's what's happening.
Right.
And it's coming out of all kinds of cool places.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Send us samples of stuff from cool places. And
absolutely. Yeah. We want to see that, small distilleries and large ones for sure. That'd be great. That'd be great to be able to experience that on the podcast and talk about a bourbon that's made in Florida or somewhere not as traditional. Because again, our niche, I keep having having to push that a little bit is to I've borrowed or stolen your words of
that happens.
It happens because you're the wise man's bourbon maker. You were at one point.
Far less wise than.
But to take really good bourbons and accentuate and highlight those really savory components, and then those that perhaps could use a little assistance or be improved upon, marry those with other really great bourbons from other states and combine them together and complement those great components, and then hone or round off any of those unsavory components they may have and create an amazing bourbon. That's why this is called blending bourbon, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Our podcast, you've heard of it, done a little bit yourself. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I love about blending bourbon is to be able to get creative with already really good aspects. And so yeah, that's what we're doing. We'd love those samples. We'd love to talk about and even share that on the podcast.
Well, I love it, and I love that we were able to do this in person. And I got a little bit. I'm gonna lean across. I'm gonna cheers you in person.
Cheers.
Always good. Always fun. Fun little discussion. We need to dive back into some of this stuff, but I don't know. Thanks, man.
Thank you.